Donald Trump is once again at the center of a political firestorm after a heated live television exchange reignited one of the biggest debates surrounding his public statements and the way they are defended by his allies. What began as a routine political discussion quickly transformed into one of the most talked about television moments of the week when the View moderator Whoopi Goldberg directly challenged an explanation offered by Vice President J.D. Vance regarding remarks previously made by Trump. Instead of allowing the conversation to move on, Goldberg interrupted to argue that the explanation did not match Trump's original comments, creating a tense back and forth that immediately spread across social media. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were circulating online, with supporters on both sides claiming victory. Trump supporters argued that his comments had once again been taken out of context, while critics insisted the interview demonstrated why public officials should be challenged in real time whenever questions arise about factual accuracy. The confrontation quickly became larger than a single television segment because it reflected a broader political reality that has defined American politics for years. Every statement made by Trump is instantly dissected, defended, criticized, and debated by millions of people across television networks, news websites, podcasts, and social media platforms. As the viral clip continued gaining attention, journalists began revisiting the original remarks at the center of the dispute, comparing transcripts and video footage to determine whether the explanation presented during the interview accurately reflected what had actually been said. That renewed scrutiny fueled another wave of commentary, with political analysts examining not only Trump's original statement, but also the strategy used by his allies whenever controversial remarks become headline news. For many observers, the interview served as another example of how political communication has evolved into a constant battle over framing, interpretation, and competing narratives. Rather than focusing solely on policy, much of the national conversation centered on credibility, media accountability, and the importance of checking public statements against the original record. Regardless of political affiliation, the exchange demonstrated how quickly a single sentence can dominate the national news cycle when it involves one of the most recognizable political figures in the country. Television commentators spent hours discussing the interview, newspapers published detailed analyses, and online audiences debated whether Goldberg's challenge was an example of responsible journalism or unnecessary confrontation. The moment also highlighted how live television leaves little room for carefully prepared messaging, because unexpected pushback can instantly reshape the direction of an interview. Instead of delivering a straightforward defense of Trump's remarks, the discussion evolved into a broader examination of political rhetoric and public trust. As reactions poured in from commentators across the political spectrum, one thing became increasingly clear. The interview had succeeded in capturing national attention far beyond its original audience. Supporters praised Trump's allies for attempting to provide additional context, while critics argued that the exchange illustrated why direct questioning remains an essential part of democratic discourse. The debate continued long after the cameras stopped rolling, reminding viewers that in today's political environment, a single televised exchange can influence headlines for days, spark countless online discussions, and become another chapter in the ongoing national conversation surrounding Donald Trump, media scrutiny, and the intense polarization that continues to shape American politics. The debate didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. In many ways, that was only the beginning. Within hours, clips of the exchange flooded social media. Political commentators were breaking down every sentence, and news outlets across the country were comparing the original remarks with the explanations offered during the interview. That's become a familiar pattern in modern American politics. A single moment on live television can dominate the news cycle for days because millions of people immediately begin analyzing every word, every reaction, and every facial expression. This latest exchange quickly became another example of how political messaging is no longer controlled by press conferences alone. Instead, every interview is instantly dissected by supporters, critics, journalists, and independent analysts who all bring different perspectives to the same event. For some viewers, the conversation demonstrated the importance of questioning public officials whenever factual disputes arise. Others believe the discussion reflected how political statements are often interpreted differently depending on who is listening. Regardless of where people stood politically, there was little disagreement that the interview had become one of the week's defining political moments. It also highlighted the increasing influence of daytime television in shaping national conversations. Shows that once focused primarily on entertainment now routinely host senior political figures, giving them an opportunity to speak directly to millions of Americans outside the traditional cable news environment. That shift has changed the expectations placed on both hosts and guests. Politicians know they'll face questions that extend beyond prepared talking points, while hosts understand their audiences expect immediate follow-up whenever an answer appears incomplete or disputed. In this environment, every interview becomes unpredictable because neither side can fully anticipate how the conversation will unfold. That's exactly why this particular exchange attracted so much attention. Instead of following a scripted path, the discussion evolved naturally into a debate over public trust, political communication, and accountability. Political analysts later pointed out that moments like these rarely change the minds of committed supporters or committed critics. Instead, they tend to influence viewers who haven't fully made up their minds and who are watching to determine which arguments appear more persuasive. Those undecided audiences often focus less on the specific policy issue being discussed and more on how confidently each participant responds under pressure. Body language, tone of voice, and willingness to defend a position all become part of the public's evaluation. That's one reason televised political interviews continue to play such an important role despite the rise of social media. They provide unscripted moments that can't easily be recreated through campaign advertisements or carefully edited videos. During the days that followed, commentators from across the political spectrum continued examining what happened, with some praising the exchange as an example of rigorous interviewing, while others argued it reflected the increasingly confrontational nature of political media. Supporters of Trump maintained that his broader message had been misunderstood, while critics insisted the original remarks should speak for themselves without later reinterpretation. The disagreement underscored a larger challenge facing modern politics. Competing narratives often emerge from the exact same set of facts. Two people can watch the same interview and reach completely different conclusions based on their prior beliefs, media consumption habits, and political values. That's one reason debates over context have become so common. Rather than arguing solely about what happened, participants frequently argue about how events should be interpreted. In this case, the discussion expanded beyond a single interview into a broader conversation about media responsibility, political messaging, and public confidence in institutions. Analysts noted that trust has become one of the most valuable commodities in politics. Whether voters trust elected officials, journalists, or independent fact-checkers often determines how they interpret controversial events. This reality creates an environment where every public appearance carries unusually high stakes. Politicians must not only communicate their preferred message, but also convince audiences that their version of events deserves greater credibility than competing accounts. Television hosts, meanwhile, face pressure from audiences expecting them to challenge questionable claims while maintaining fairness and professionalism. Balancing those expectations is increasingly difficult in an era of intense political polarization. Every question asked, every interruption made, and every follow-up offered is likely to be praised by one side and criticized by the other. That dynamic ensures that interviews involving major political figures rarely end when the broadcast concludes. Instead, they continue through online discussions, opinion columns, podcasts, and countless reaction videos that amplify the original exchange far beyond its initial audience. As the days passed, the conversation broadened to include larger questions about political communication itself. Experts discussed how campaigns attempt to shape narratives after controversial moments, often emphasizing context, intent, or broader policy goals. Critics, meanwhile, argued that public officials should be evaluated based on their actual words rather than subsequent explanations. Neither perspective was new, but the interview provided another highly visible example of how these competing approaches collide in real time. For many viewers, the lasting significance of the exchange wasn't limited to one disputed statement. Instead, it illustrated the increasingly complex relationship between politicians, journalists, and audiences in an age where every public appearance is instantly recorded, replayed, analyzed, and debated across dozens of platforms. Whether people ultimately sided with Trump, Goldberg, or neither, the interview demonstrated how quickly political conversations can evolve into national debates about credibility, accountability, and the power of live television to shape public opinion. That is why this moment continued generating headlines long after the broadcast ended, serving as another reminder that in today's political environment, the conversation rarely stops when the cameras turn off. As discussion of the interview continued, attention gradually shifted beyond the exchange itself and toward the broader political environment that made the moment resonate with so many viewers. Over the past several years, Americans have become accustomed to seeing political disagreements unfold not only in campaign rallies and congressional hearings, but also on entertainment programs, podcasts, and daytime television. That evolution has fundamentally changed the way political messages reach the public. Instead of relying exclusively on formal speeches or official press conferences, elected officials increasingly appear on programs with diverse audiences, hoping to connect with viewers who may not regularly watch traditional political programming. Those appearances create opportunities to present policies in a more conversational setting, but they also come with significant risks. Unlike scripted campaign events, live interviews can take unexpected turns, and follow-up questions often force guests to explain or defend previous statements in real time. Political strategists understand that these appearances can either reinforce a carefully crafted message or generate entirely new headlines that overshadow the original purpose of the interview. That reality helps explain why the exchange receives so much attention. It was no longer simply a discussion about one remark or one policy issue. It became a case study in how political communication works in an era where every sentence is instantly shared, replayed, and evaluated by millions of people. News organizations produce side-by-side comparisons of the original comments and the interview discussion, while opinion writers explored the broader implications for political messaging and media accountability. Across social media, users clipped short segments of the conversation, often highlighting different moments depending on the point they wanted to make. Some emphasized the challenge posed by the interviewer, arguing that public figures should always expect detailed questions about previous statements. Others focused on the guest's broader explanation, suggesting that complex political comments are often reduced to brief clips that fail to capture the full context. This contrast reflected one of the defining characteristics of modern political discourse. Audiences increasingly consume information in fragmented pieces, and those fragments can shape perceptions long before viewers watch the complete interview. Communication experts have noted that first impressions often become lasting impressions, particularly in highly polarized political environments where confirmation bias influences how new information is received. People naturally pay greater attention to details that reinforce their existing beliefs while viewing contradictory evidence with greater skepticism. As a result, identical interviews can produce dramatically different interpretations depending on the audience. Some viewers concluded that the exchange demonstrated effective journalistic questioning, while others believed it illustrated how political interviews sometimes become confrontational rather than informative. Regardless of those differing opinions, the interview undeniably succeeded in capturing public attention and generating widespread discussion. That outcome alone underscores the continuing influence of television despite the rapid growth of digital platforms. Even in an age dominated by streaming services and social media, live television retains a unique ability to produce nationally shared moments that become common reference points across the political landscape. Another reason the interview attracted sustained interest was its timing. It occurred during a period when economic issues, foreign policy debates, and campaign messaging were already receiving heightened public attention. In such an environment, even relatively brief exchanges can take on added significance because audiences view them through the lens of larger national debates. Political campaigns are constantly attempting to shape public narratives around leadership, competence, and credibility, while opponents seek opportunities to challenge those narratives whenever possible. Television interviews frequently become the arena where those competing efforts collide. Analysts often describe these moments as tests of message discipline because successful communicators must remain focused under pressure while responding clearly to unexpected questions. When discussions shift away from prepared talking points, viewers gain a more spontaneous glimpse of how public figures react in unscripted situations. Those reactions often leave stronger impressions than polished campaign speeches because audiences perceive them as more authentic. Whether that perception is justified or not, it plays an important role in shaping public opinion. Beyond the immediate political implications, the interview also renewed discussion about the responsibilities of journalists and television hosts. Some commentators argued that challenging disputed statements is an essential part of informing the public, particularly when interviews involve influential political leaders. Others cautioned that interviewers must balance skepticism with fairness, ensuring that guests have sufficient opportunity to explain their positions. These differing perspectives reflect long-standing debates within journalism about objectivity, accountability, and the role of the press in democratic societies. While opinions vary regarding the appropriate balance, there is broad agreement that transparency and accuracy remain fundamental principles of responsible reporting. For viewers, moments like this often reinforce the importance of consulting multiple sources before reaching conclusions about controversial issues. No single interview, headline, or viral clip can fully capture the complexity of major political debates. Instead, informed audiences benefit from reviewing original statements, considering additional context, and comparing coverage from a variety of reputable outlets. The widespread attention generated by this exchange demonstrated how quickly public conversations can evolve when high-profile figures engage in direct, unscripted discussions about contentious topics. It also highlighted the enduring importance of critical thinking in an era where information travels faster than ever before. As campaigns continue, similar exchanges are likely to remain a regular feature of the political landscape, reminding both public officials and media organizations that millions of viewers are watching closely, evaluating not only the substance of political arguments, but also the manner in which those arguments are presented and challenged. Ultimately, the significance of this interview extends beyond a single broadcast. It serves as another example of how modern politics increasingly unfolds in real time before a national audience, where every answer invites scrutiny, every question generates reaction, and every widely shared moment contributes to the broader conversation about leadership, communication, and public trust.